6 Fulton County, Georgia deputies have been indicted on several charges, including murder, after Antonio May died in their custody in 2018. Now, May was beaten, pepper sprayed, and repeatedly tased, exposing himself to deputies while in his cell. May suffered from mental health and substance abuse issues and was not placed in an appropriate medical observation unit, even though he himself told officials he was suicidal. According to May's attorney, May eventually became unresponsive and died of cardiovascular collapse due to physical restraint. Arron Cook, Guito Dela Cruz, Jason Roache, Kinesia Strowder, Omar Jackson, and William Whitaker are facing 5 charges, including the aforementioned murder, aggravated assault, assault and battery, and 2 counts of violation of oath of office. Candace, when you hear that story and you hear about this man saying, hey, I myself may be suicidal, and yet the guards aren't treating him with that kind of sincerity because he exposed himself, guards being impetus, like just acting, as Kelly says, infantile because they could not handle that. But these aren't the 13 to 16-year-olds that we need to balance consideration of their immaturity with. These are adults who, to Kelly's point, are paid for by taxpayers who were exacting this harm on one of those in custody. What's your read on this? And is there any faith or optimism that, one, justice can be found here, but beyond justice, and forgive me for boxing you in with the question, is there any optimism we can stop this from happening?
Well, certainly they are adults. But listen, they are adults that need more education on how to handle people in those types of social and mental crises that we know about that they often do not know about. When we look at police training, they go, 1 or 2 years? They reach a certain amount of hours. They don't get a lot of training for people like this. And this is where they run into a wall. But we've seen what's happened in Camden, New Jersey. We've seen what's happened in Ithaca, New York, where they have rearranged their whole policing system in order to deal with the changes in the community and keep up with various people's needs. Why do people have to have police training in order to be a part of the force? I think that things are changing, and I think that they're changing for the better if we look at a few examples that already exist. That's number one. We have templates. We have templates that works, and these are cities like Ithaca who, if you reach out to them, they will help you with your city and your situation because they're doing it up there. Number two, the Department of Justice has to get involved in these types of places the same way that they are in Phoenix, Arizona, the same way that they are in Minneapolis, where they're getting on the ground with police officers, interviewing people, interviewing retirees, interviewing people who are part of the community to figure out what is the matter with this policing system? What's going on with the decisions that they are making day to day? They are doing ride-alongs, the Department of Justice, and they're writing up information, and they're going to have big, healthy reports to try to figure out how to get down to the bottom of this. This is a place where the Department of Justice should go be stomping their boots in order to make some noise and get inside to figure out what's going on behind the curtain, the same way that they are doing in other cities in the country.
Kelly, let me ask you this. Is it just that we as a society think that whatever happens to a person in police custody, they deserve it because they're in police custody in the first place? Because it's one thing when we see the interaction between citizens and law enforcement before they become persons in custody, but far too often are those in the custody of our Department of Corrections, ironically as they're called, have adverse experiences. We know that with Sandra Bland. Once she was in their custody, horrible things happen. And so what does it just say that us, not just those who need the training that Candace correctly pointed out, but we as a society, are we okay with what happens to people in custody because we blame them for being in custody?
That's a loaded question, right? Because as a society, we've been conditioned to trust the police. We've been conditioned to trust law enforcement and defer to their judgment when it comes to pretty much anything that they do, right? So the fact that we are now coming around finally to the point and the notion that police officers are humans too, meaning that they too can also make mistakes. That is shifting the paradigm for sure regarding the perception of police officers. But right now, I mean, you can see it with the Rittenhouse case. Even though he wasn't a cop, he was, defending the law or whatever he was doing. And even in that notion, even though he's not a cop, people are like, well, it was chaotic and he was trying to abate the chaos. So I guess what he did was okay, because we trust people who are attempting to or allegedly abating chaos to be good people. But Rittenhouse very well could have been lying about that. You see what I'm saying? Police officers, we now know, lie. So I think we are shifting the perception of police officers, meaning that we know that they are human now. We know that they make mistakes, but we have a long way to go before we can truly hold them accountable for their actions because of the hold, the psychological hold that law enforcement, the conception of law enforcement has on the American people.
Michael, let me ask you this. We've done so much work, as Candace and Kelly have pointed out already, about getting the public to understand, yes, law enforcement officers, generally police and sheriffs, are human beings. But when we start to pierce inside those who work in the Department of Corrections, are we going to have to start all over again in teaching about some of the horrors that those guards inflict on those that are in custody?
Yeah, that has to be, I think that has to be exposed, but also then that's part of the, you see, you have the police reform. You have one side, which is police reform, the police departments, 18,500 police departments, things like this. But then you also have to have prison reform and what takes place inside of prisons and how prisoners are treated. And there has to be, I think a shift is taking place now where people are realizing just because somebody is in prison, and even if they are guilty, because sometimes you have people who are not guilty who are in prison and they've been convicted, that does not mean they should be treated inhumanely. And we have to come to that realization that these are still human beings and you can't mistreat, you can't just do whatever you want to them. And then also understanding the role that mental illness plays, and you have a lot of people who are in prison who are mentally ill, and you have prison guards who interact with them who may not have training on how to deal with people who are mentally ill. So you have the reform that needs to take place when it deals with police reform, but also that takes place, the reform that needs to take place when it comes to the whole prison industrial complex as well.
Back to roll my unfiltered video in just one moment.
Time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on that.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared. You dig?